as I'm thinking about where we left off last week, Daniel was receiving a vision, as a vision that in the time of Belshazzar, I believe, is what he, if I remember right. And he had received a lot of information, but it was one of those things that sometimes visions, uh, you may have a little difficulty knowing what they mean. And so Daniel wanted to know, and so he said in Daniel chapter 8, verse 15, where we're starting tonight, and where we kind of had left off last week, he says, "When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it, and behold, standing before me was one who looked like a son of like a man." So it looks, not all angels apparently. I don't know if they have the ability to change what they look like. But apparently it doesn't seem to indicate that some of them look like various things, and but that some of them look like men, and even speak with the voices and can speak audibly. And so I don't understand all of that. I'm not into angiology, never have been, and um, so that's not my area. However, this is Gabriel, and Gabriel is very significant, not only in Daniel's life, but then also in the coming of Christ, and the first coming of Christ, and I believe in the second coming of Christ as well. Gabriel has been an angel who communicates with prophets, or with like with people like Joseph and Mary, and uh, what was it, Zechariah, and all of that, like that. And so, but we'll find out that this is Gabriel, and he knows him because he's the one that God has sent to describe to Daniel, or to let him know what the visions mean. So I sought to understand it. Behold, standing before me was one who looked like a man, and I heard a voice of a man, in other words, a human voice, between the banks of Ulai. In other words, in the middle of the river, standing on the river, he hears a voice, and the voice is a voice of command. And it's a voice that is to Gabriel. And he called out and said, "Gabriel, give this man an understanding of the vision." Now, my own belief is that this is the archangel, probably the Archangel Michael. And we'll look into that a little bit tonight. I'm not into angelology, and so I'm not going to try to get a lot of things about angels, except for the fact that they very obviously are a big part of this story, this revelation that's given, and is given for not only Daniel in his time. Daniel was almost like a scribe, in a sense, of taking this vision and the understanding that he's given by the angels, by especially by Gabriel, and to take that and put it in a form so that it has gotten down to us, and will get down to the people of that generation when it is so needed and necessary, that it will be available. And so that's why it says, give this man this, and actually the word man has been inserted, but just give this an understanding of the vision, and so that he could, enough that he could write it, not enough that he could say, "Oh, now I get it," that kind of idea. I don't think the idea was so that Daniel would be able to say, "I've got it," or that even that we would be able to. Nevertheless, when these things are fulfilled, then we'll be able to say, "So this is what was spoken of by Daniel the prophet." So, like Jesus said in the Olivet Discourse, when therefore you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. And then he goes on to give instruction of what the reader should do. The reader of what? The reader of Daniel. Daniel wrote these things in such a way that they were preserved, whether it be in Aramaic, or Hebrew, or a mixture of some of the language of the uh, Babylonians or Medes and Persians and like that, but it added some of their words. Some of the words are things that came out of foreign sources, but mostly I think it's Aramaic, and but it might also be some but Hebrew as well. But he wrote it down in a form that is has been interpreted and translated rather all the way down. So even though the interpretations of that people have given to different things may you wonder about, here's the thing: if God gave it to Daniel and gave him all of this to write down, God has the ability to preserve in the language of people that will need it the things that they will need. If it's for a certain people in a certain generation at a certain time. And so, and it has been passed down, and is passed down even to us. We read it because he said, let the reader understand. So it's let the reader of Daniel understand these things he's saying. So he came near to where I was standing. So Daniel is standing on the bank of the Ulai, and looking out across the river, across the bay, probably across the Persian Gulf, and he came to where I was standing, and I never, to the best of my knowledge, I can't say that I've ever had an angel came near to where I was standing with me knowing about it. I don't know of a situation where that happened, and I doubt if any of us do. But I'm not gonna say it hasn't happened, because the scripture says we ain't entertain angels unaware. In other words, we're not aware that some person that maybe they're just doing their regular human thing. They don't intend to be a messenger of God, but an angel is a messenger of God, and they become an angel. Sometimes they become sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's wind, sometimes it's other ways that God communicates his message. But this one, he saw a man, and like the form of a man, and he was came to where I was standing. He said, and when he came, I was frightened. I can just imagine that would be the case if you knew that it was an angel. And even though today and there will come a day when we will be over angels, that angels will be under the command of the saints, that at this time they are above human beings, and that they are ministers, flames of fire that actually minister in so many different ways. And I'll tell you now that even when I thank God for angels and powers and anything that he uses to aid us in our journey here today, I mean, I've prayed for them, and I do pray, God, if there's war going on between the angels, I'm on the side of your angels, Michael, the archangel, and all of those that are with him. I'm on their side, and I pray that you'll empower them and strengthen them and give them, dear Lord, your help and whatever it is they need to be successful in this thing that they do. And I bind all those demonic forces, those angels that are fallen and that have fallen short of your will and way. And you can just pray that way. Sometimes you'll pray that way. I don't, or maybe you do. But they don't show up so that I see them. If they did, maybe I would do exactly what Daniel, he heard a lot from God, a lot from angels. But when this happened, he was so frightened that he fell on his face. And that would be the right thing, the right posture, I guess, what you'd say, was to fall on his face. And for some of us today, it'd be hard to get up if we did that. But he fell on his face. In other words, got down on his face before him, and he said, but Gabriel said to him, Son of man, understand that this vision pertains to what? The time of the end. So he wants him to understand this vision is really about the time of the end. Now he's going to tell him about some things that are intermediate, and some of the things that have happened in the vision itself have a primary fulfillment in things that are to us history. In fact, almost everything in all of this is to us history. It was prophecy when it was given. It is history to us. We can look back and we know about the kings of the Medes and Persians and what happened to all of the kings of Babylon and what happened to the kings of the Persians and the Medes and all of that. We know all of those things that happened, and we know about Alexander the Great, and we know about the Greek Empire and all of that. That was all prophecy when it was given to him here, but it was the things upon which, the foundations upon which things that were later to come would be built. And so he gives all of that. And so he gives from his time all the way up to when? The time of the end. But this vision pertains to the time of the end. Now, what is the time of the end? The time of the end, time of the terminus or the terminal of this church age. So of the age of Christianity and or the age of salvation, as it's called in different places. But this time, the end of this time, and it ends with a time of great trouble and great tribulation and great persecution against the saints of God, starting with the Jews and the ones that are called Semites today. And a lot of those that are anti-Semites don't realize that they're Semites themselves. That just means Semites are people that came from the son of Noah named Shem. So Shem's descendants were called Shemites, and then later Semites. So that's what that means. And so there's three possibilities of what, if, because of nationalities and all, you could be traced back. Your lineage could be traced back, all of us, to Noah, but his sons, they all went into their various places, and so the Shemites or the Semites now are the ones that the Jews came out of. But remember this too, that the Arabs came out of them as well. So at least that's assuming, and I may, where that could be wrong would be if the I'm going to stick with that. I think I'm going to stick with that. I could see where that the people of Egypt, if the people of Egypt were children of Ham or Japheth, then I could see where they married into, or that Hagar would have been then where that the mixture that would take so that Ishmael would have been half, maybe from a different tribe. I'm getting into stuff that I don't need to. Okay, so that has nothing to do with any of this. But understand that the vision pertains to the time of the end. In the end times, it's going to begin with a great persecution against Israel and against Jews everywhere. Maybe such great persecution that many Jews are going to say, I would be better to be in Israel, where there's, and the rest of the world's going to feel this way too. And right now in the United States, you say, well, I can't imagine that. But see what's happening in New York City, and you see how many of the Jews are going now, so that New York City was the largest Jewish population, probably still is, maybe Los Angeles after that. But I'll tell you now, Southern Florida is getting to be, from what I heard this morning, that one of the highest populations of Jews are in Florida, if I understood them right, and I think I did. And so because of the persecution that's going on in one place, Jews have always, because of the persecution, moved to other places. And that's part of the reason they moved all the way to the very western coast of Europe and occupied those lands in the northwestern portion of Europe, probably. And then on into, from there, jumped across into the British Isles and all of the isles, and then finally, in due time, to across the ocean and on, but kept moving more west and as time went on. And so, anyway, I don't need to go much farther with that, except for the fact that there's great persecution will begin against the Jews, but it won't stay there. It will not stay there. That persecution will begin to be, and you can read about the last verse of chapter 12 of Revelation. I don't know if we'll do that tonight. We may, but there where it talks about, because he couldn't go against the Jews, Satan will send his forces against the rest of the children that are considered children of the almost of the Jews, like adopted children into the family that keep the testimony of Jesus Christ and keep the rules and laws. The law to love your God supremely and to love your fellow man as yourself. That keep those laws and all that that means. But anyway, the time of the end is talking about especially that last 1260 days. So he goes on to say, now, while he was talking with me, I sank into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. And I couldn't help but think of some of you, how when I read this, how, no, not how, but how some of us have probably been there. And by the way, while some people were talking, I've gone to sleep too. But this angel, he's talking to him, and I think that the message that he gave was so great that Daniel, laying on the ground, face to the ground, he sank into a deep sleep with his face right there laying against the ground. But Gabriel reached down and touched him and strengthened him and made him to stand on his feet. So he said, I sank into a deep sleep with my face to the ground, but he touched me and made me stand upright. He said, behold, I'm going to let you know what will occur. When? At the final period of the indignation. The indignation is talking about the tribulation. This time that will begin with anti-Semitism, but will result in a hard move of the entire world against Christianity. The Jews will turn to Christ because of the events that happened just before this, probably either, I don't know if it'll be just before the 7 years or just before the last 3.5 years, but in that period of time, they will turn when there's the attack of the Northern Army. So the first thing that happens is the rider on the white horse goes forth conquering and to conquer, given a bow and a crown, going forth conquering and to conquer, and he is doing all of that until the rider on the red horse has a great weapon with which to take peace from the earth. And so the rider on the red horse comes after that, or as it says in Daniel chapter 7, the lion with the eagle's wings. He said, I watched until his wings were plucked, and he was made to stand on his 2 feet, and it was given a human heart. And then right after that, there's a bear with 3 ribs in his teeth that comes. Those are 2 of the same. I believe it's the same thing, but that is the beginning. The beginning of the period of the indignation, I believe, the 7 years begins with a war when the Anglo-American alliance, Anglo-American entity is at least temporarily reduced, while because of the things of the northern Russian, Iranian, and Turkish alliance with all those that are with them, and there'll be many other countries as well in all of that, as they're coming down out of the north. And it may be because of what happens to the Anglo-American entity. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, whether it will actually be. At this point, it doesn't sound like the nuclear war or the fire will happen at that point that causes it to enable, but it might be that that's already happened, or it could be cyber or other things, or it could be a something as simple as a coronal mass ejection that causes an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that cooks a lot of American electronics. I'm not sure what it will be, but that will cause it, and it will cause the Jews, though, in that one night to turn to Him. And so we're going to see all of that, but that's the beginning of the final period of the indignation. The final period of the indignation is that last part of what's called the tribulation and then the great tribulation, that last 1260 days. And so he says, I'm going to let you know what will occur at the final period of the indignation. So, sixth period. No, it's the last period of the indignation. It pertains to what? The appointed time of the end. God has on His calendar an appointed time written. Now, I don't mean that literally. I mean it figuratively. God knows exactly when the last time is coming. God has worked. It's all there. The time is already appointed. He knows the appointment, and so He said, "I'm going to let you know what happens at that appointed time." That appointed time is going to take place. I don't know if it's 2 minutes to midnight or 10 minutes to midnight or what it is, or when until the time that it happens. But anyway, He says, "I'm going to let you know that." Now, what starts from the time of Daniel moving forward? So, following at the end of Daniel's reign, the Babylonians, there's a war, and the Medes and the Persians joined together. And while the Babylonians think that they cannot be conquered while they're in Babylon, they are wrong. And so the Medes and the Persians, they cut off the water that was flowing under the city gates, the water gates, that when the waters lowered, then they could come under, and they did, and they were there. So that was the night that was a Belshazzar that said he saw the handwriting on the wall. Anyway, the one saw the handwriting on the wall, and Daniel is called to interpret it, and it says "Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin," which my understanding, or what Daniel says, is you have been found, weighed in the balance and found wanting. And so he fell. They were all destroyed. Those and the Medes and the Persians took over all of their empire, including, though, that the children of Israel were still, or the of Judah were still in Babylon at the time that they took over. And so it will be Daniel will serve under the kings of the Medes and the Persians, and is finally, I think it was Cyrus that will finally release them, a Persian king, an Iranian king that releases them to go back into their land partially because of his relationship with Daniel. The shaggy goat, he said, represents the kingdom of Greece. So after the Medes and the Persians, there will come another. And I think this is a primary fulfillment, maybe not the final fulfillment, which you'll see in the verses just follow. But the primary fulfillment of the shaggy goat represents the kingdom of Greece. And so Greece took over all of these other empires. So there's the Babylonian and the Assyrian, and then the Medo-Persian Empire, and then the Greek, and then the Romans. And so that's the kind of the way that the empires went. But this is the kingdom of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes is the first king. So the kingdom, the shaggy goat, is Greece, or the first representation of it, and the large horn would be Alexander the Great, who is the first great power of that king. But the broken horn, that horn is broken off. So the broken horn and the four horns that rose in his place represents four kingdoms which will arise from his nation, although not with his power. So the Grecian empire is broken down, and but the idea of four kingdoms, I have a hard time seeing that. I do know though that one of the generals, Grecian generals, is the one that was given, I guess you could say, his portion was what became the Holy Land, and I think even down into Africa. I'm not positive about all that. Some of them went as far in the direction of Rome to the west, and others um, to the nations to the north and south, I guess. And I'm not sure about all of that, and I'm not sure who those generals were, any of that. But anyway, the generals scattered. But now, in the latter period of their rule, so of all of those kingdoms that came out of the Greeks, they had taken all those others, and then the Romans took it from them. But out of the Roman Empire, other empires came out of that. And so one of those would become the British Empire. And then the British Empire, you know how that goes on until it gets even to today. But in the latter period of their rule, when all of those have ruled, and when transgressors have run their course. So today there's a lot of transgressors, and a lot of them, the nations are ruled by what would be transgressors against the will and law of God. And so when they've run their course, when they're finished, when they've done what they're going to do, a king will arise. This king is uh, insolent, insolent, and that means he's oh brash and uh, oh, there's a, you know what it means better than I do, but insolent, and he's skilled in intrigue. He's one that has the ability. He says what he wants to say, and you can like it or you cannot like it. It doesn't make any difference. But he knows how to work all of the levers, I guess you would say. He understands that the way the world is working and how to pull the right levers so that every one of the kings and every one of the powers and all of those things are to a large degree under his control. He may not seem like he's always getting his will, but he does. And so he's a rise, and he's insolent, he's brash, he's way out in front, over the top, and he's skilled in intrigue. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. Now something happens to him, and so what happens to him, I can't say exactly. Well, I know, but I can't say. I think exactly what I think will happen, but his power will be mighty. But understand this: that when then that power is he is given power by a supernatural power. So his power will be mighty, but not by his own power. What does that mean? So I kind of wanted us to look at that. Revelation chapter 10, verse 1. Uh, let's see. Do I want to do it here? Let me think. Just give me a second. I'll do it this way. Um, and let's see. No, I'd better. Yeah, let me do this. Sorry about that. So, in Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. You remember all of that. And the beast, which I saw, was like a leopard. His feet were like those of the bear, and his mouth, the mouth of the lion, the dragon. But notice this, and the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. So now, this one that we're talking about, he will, and this might as well just lay this out. He is one who he's one of the heads. He was slain, but the fatal wound was healed, and everyone runs after him because he doesn't seem to be able to be killed. Or he was killed. And I've always thought he'll lie, maybe lie in state, maybe in the rotunda or whatever, and then suddenly be raised from the dead. I don't know exactly how it will be, maybe after 3 days and all of that. Don't know how it will be. But however it is, understand this: the dragon gave him his power and throne and his great authority. Now, the dragon is going to get cast out, does get cast out. In fact, we would have seen it in the chapter just prior to this. It hadn't been that long since we've looked at it, that the dragon was cast out and thrown to the earth. And he knows that he has just a little bit of time. He gives his authority to the beast, to this one of his heads, as if I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who's like the beast, and who's able to wage war with him?" And there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months. That's how long he has. 42 months. 42 30-day months is 1,260 days. That's how long he has. That's how much was given to him, the amount of authority he's given. He opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was also given to him to make war with the saints. So the saints are the holy ones. And so we looked at that. I think we may have looked at this last week, but we've looked at it many times. I want us to keep looking at it because I want this to kind of be fresh in our minds. It was also given him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of the life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. So that's the way it has it here in Daniel chapter, in Revelation chapter 13. But in Daniel, it said, in the latter part of their rule, when transgressors have run their course, this king will arise and he will destroy many. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. So where's his power? It's from the dragon. And so the powers, it's a mighty power, but it's not his own. It's a supernatural power. It looks in the sense that it is unnatural for a human being to have the power that he will have, because it will be the angelic power that will be displayed through him. And he will destroy to an extraordinary degree and will prosper and perform his will. He will destroy mighty men and the holy people. The same idea, same thing that it says in Revelation chapter 13 that we just read, where it's talking about the same thing. Now, some would say the holy people here just talking about Jews, but he makes it clear in other places, which we may get to in just a moment, that he is talking about Christians as well. In fact, we can go back. I'll go back in just a little bit. But through his shrewdness, he will cause deceit to succeed by his influence. So he will still be very intelligent, very able to cause deceit to succeed. And he will influence people to believe what he wants them to believe. They will believe what they want to believe. And so they will believe what builds them up. You know how that some people can control others by saying what they want to hear, by tickling their ears or tickling their fancy, whatever. But anyway, by his influence, he will cause deceit to prosper, to succeed, and he will magnify himself in his own heart. In his own heart, he's going to say, "I am like God. I am like the Son of God. I am." I am immortal. I am the one that's raised from the dead. I am the one that suffered a deadly head wound and lived. And he will magnify himself and build himself up so that he even believes himself when he says that. At first, it will be maybe compensation, trying to do something because of something that happened. Maybe his father called him a loser or something when he was a kid. Who knows what? But so he's trying to build himself up, but he will magnify himself. But now he will believe his own press clippings that he's made, and he will destroy many while they're at ease. And so he will destroy those that are not fighting against him while they feel like they're completely safe, and he will destroy many. He will even oppose the prince of princes, but will be broken without human agency. Now, this is talking about, I believe, the war that will take place in heaven. And so I'm just going to read one more verse out of this, and then I'm going to go to some of that. But he will even oppose the prince of princes, will be broken without human agency. Now he says the vision of the evenings and mornings, which has been told you, is true, but keep the vision secret, pertains to many days in the future. In other words, there's some of the things in the vision that cannot be revealed to you, to Daniel, nor to us. And this is the same in Daniel chapter 12. When we get over to there, we'll see the same thing that he says it's sealed up, and it will be sealed until the last day, when Christ begins to break the seals, and then much understanding will come. Daniel was exhausted and sick for days, and then got up and carried on the king's business, he says. So that's the way that was. Now, he refers to the war. He will even oppose the prince of princes. I told you that. Now, where does we find that? Back over in Daniel chapter third. I mean, well, no, not Revelation 13. Daniel chapter 12. I'll start with Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And I'm going to go very quickly on some of this. But now at that time, Michael, the great prince, who stands guard over the sons of your people. Now, who is the great prince? Michael is an archangel. Michael is the great prince. He is prince of princes, prince over the princes. And the princes in Daniel called all angels the prince of Israel, the prince of Persia, the prince of Greece, and whatever, the angel that was their guardian angel. Michael is the great prince, but he stands guard over the sons of your people. In other words, over Israel. So Michael's assigned people are the children of Israel, and that's who he's guarding. But because of their sins and because they do not follow the will and purposes of God, they have to go through a lot of things, and they have gone through a lot of things. But Michael is still their prince. Now, at that time, Michael, the great prince, who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise. And there will be a time of distress such as has never occurred since there was a nation until that time. So there's going to be a time of great, it's been called the time of Jacob's trouble. It's what's called in Jeremiah, but it's going to be a time of trouble, the time of distress. Jesus called it a time of great tribulation in the Olivet Discourse. He said that following the abomination of desolation, he talked about there will be a time of great tribulation. And it's such that it's going to be so bad, according to Jesus even, that if it were not for the fact that God shortened the time, no flesh would be left alive. But for the sake of the elect, he said, that time would be cut short. So before all of the Christians have been killed and the Jews have been killed, Jews at that time being Christians as well, I believe, if I understand it right. And so, but before that, God will call it. And so it's only going to last for 1,260 days, only going to last for 1,260 days. It's going to be a very difficult time, and it's going to be a worst time that's ever been on the earth. And Jesus referred to it that way. Daniel refers to it that way here. So that their time of distress such as has never occurred since there was a nation till that time. At that time, your people, everyone who's found written in the book, will be rescued. And so God will rescue them. Now, some of them he'll rescue while they're still alive. And some of them will be rescued because they have gone to sleep. What does that mean? They've died. And so there's going to be a great time of trouble. This one will fight against Michael and will fight against the people of God. And at that time, many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground, when this is over, will arise to everlasting life. But the others, those who are not part of that first resurrection, will be part of the last resurrection 1,000 years later, and they will be raised to disgrace and everlasting contempt. Those that are part of that first resurrection, those that are, he's given us that note to look forward to, that but many of the ones that are dead, the dead in Christ will rise first. Those that are alive and remain will be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, will be caught up together with them to meet the Lord in the air. This is that time it's talking about. The others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. But he goes on with the explanation. Those who have insight during that period of time will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. That the people that have insight, and I'm hoping and praying that you're one of those, and that you will be one of those that will have that insight. But notice back in Daniel's chapter, the chapter before it, it talks about exactly the same time Jesus has talked about. In fact, he refers back to this. But forces from him, from the Antichrist, and from Satan even, but especially from the Antichrist and the false prophet, forces from him, the Antichrist, will arise and desecrate the sanctuary fortress. The sanctuary fortress. How will they do that? By setting up something on there that desecrates it, and that is generally considered that it probably will be a statue, maybe of himself. It might be something that might be a hologram. It might be something, and maybe it has, who knows? I'm not going to speculate any farther than that. It doesn't say, so I don't know. Just that he will desecrate it, though, in some way. Maybe kills pigs on the altar. Who knows? But they will do away with the regular sacrifice. The regular sacrifice cannot be started until there is the blood and all of the red heifer, so that the red heifer, perfect red heifer, will be burned, and the ashes will be scattered on water. That water will be taken, and it will be the holy water used to sanctify the sanctuary fortress and all of that goes with that. And then from that point on, it is sanctified. It is made holy by that means. That's what they were told to do. But if something is set up there that desecrates it, that makes it unclean. It's no longer a suitable place for the sacrifices to God to take place, for the sacrifices to go up. And so because of that, they will do away with the regular sacrifice for that 2,300 mornings and evenings, whatever that means. But they'll do away with the regular sacrifice. They will set up the abomination of desolation. This is the second place that Daniel speaks about the abomination that makes desolate. Chapter 9, the last verse, and then then in chapter 12. By smooth words, it says, he, meaning the Antichrist, will turn to godlessness, those who act wickedly toward the covenant. The covenant God made with Israel, the covenant that God made through Jesus to the Christians and to the Jews, that now the covenant that has taken the place of the first covenant that they did not keep, he has replaced it, as the way that it says it, with another covenant. And this is the covenant is given through Christ, and he'll act wickedly toward that covenant. But the people who know their God will display strength and take action. What kind of action will they take? So there's people that they know God, and they know exactly what they need to do, those who have insight. And so this is the same thing he says in chapter 12 when he talked about those who have the insight among the people. Here it says, those who have insight among the people, what will they do? They will give understanding to the many. So they will have insight. They will give that insight. They will give that understanding to those that want to know. They're wanting to know, what does all this mean? What does all this mean? And they will be coming to them, and there will be a almost artificial, in some ways, revival. A lot of people maybe will come to the Lord, and they'll come to parents and come to friends and others who have known and say, what does this mean? What does it mean? And they will be able to give them that. And for many, I think they will turn to the Lord while it's still the day of salvation. The day of salvation is not over until the 1260 days, and it may be until 1290 days, at which we may see, probably not tonight, but we could see later on in Daniel chapter 12. But those who have insight will give understanding to the many, and yet they will fall. The many, as well as those who have insight, I believe. It's going to make that clear in the verse following. But many of those who have insight and many of those that they've led to righteousness, what's going to take place, are led to given insight. They will fall by sword, by flame, by captivity, and by plunder for many days. So during that period of time, and it just says the word many is not there, it just means days. For days, they will suffer these things, fall by sword, fall by flame, fall by captivity or by plunder, maybe through multiple of those. And when they fall, they will be granted a little help. God will be with them, and many will join them play acting in hypocrisy. They will act like that but they're not really in it. They just want to join what God is doing, because they will see that God is giving them help and giving them mercy. They will be granted a little help, and that'll cause some people to join with them. Some of those who have insight will fall. In other words, and I hope it means the same thing here that it does in the other. So where it said some will fall by sword, flame, captivity, and plunder, here it says some of those who have insight will fall. There it meant to die. Here I hope that's what it means. Some of those who have insight will die before the coming of Christ. They will be raised just like the others when the trumpet sounds and the archangel shouts and Christ says, "Come up here." They will be raised at that time, because they will have died during the tribulation. But many, I believe, will live all the way through it with God's help, and with God. With God, we can, whatever it is. And so I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And you can live through that time and keep your faith and be a source of insight and wisdom to many who might, even in those last days, if they haven't taken the mark of the beast, they can, and still hopefully will know better than to take the mark of the beast, and will still turn to Christ. That can happen. Even if it's in those very last moments, it can happen. But some of those who have insight will fall. And I believe that means with it, they will be killed. They will fall to sword, flame, captivity, and plunder, in order to refine, purge, and make them pure. In other words, they're not immune from the very same things that are happening to the others. They also will go through those things until the end. Why? Because it's still to come at what time? The appointed time. Same thing that it said in chapter 8. It says here again about the appointed time. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, speak monstrous things against the God of gods, and he will prosper. How long? Until the indignation is finished. For that which is decreed will be done. And so it goes on to talk more about that. Now, and we were in Daniel chapter 12, and I wanted to kind of finish up. I know that we're just down to the mark, but many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground, it goes on to all of that. Those who have insight will shine brightly, like the brightness of the expanse of heaven. I believe in that time, they will be like stars. And I don't mean that like the angels, because the angels are generally the ones that are represented by stars. They bring insight, they bring light, but these will bring light into a dark place, into a dark tribulation, into dark night, let's say, of that time. Those who have insight will shine brightly, and maybe throughout eternity, they will shine like the stars. They will be bright. They will have a brightness about them, a glory, a Shekinah glory, a shining that shines from them, so that they will be recognizable in the day to come, as God gives his rewards and punishments. Those who will be rewarded with a glory that is bright like the expanse of the heaven, who lead many to righteousness, and I think who lead to many to righteousness through that time, encouraging the saints to stay true, encouraging others to get saved and become saints. They will shine like the stars forever and ever. But then he says, but as for you, Daniel, conceal the words and seal up the book until the end time. Many will go back and forth. Knowledge will increase. He tells him, but he said, for you, seal up the book. And Daniel is not going to know the meaning of all these things. The book is sealed. But remember, what is Jesus given when it says that the Lion of the tribe of Judah is presented before God, and what does he see? He sees a lamb as though it has been slain. This is Jesus, and he appears before God the Father, and God has a book or a scroll in his hand that he delivers to Jesus, and Jesus is the only one that can open the seals, that can open the book, and as he breaks the seven seals, then the revelation of all these other things will come about. But until then, the words are concealed and sealed up in the book. And so for most people, it's going to be we may not know all that it means, but we will be able to see as these things begin to unfold. And as he begins to open the book, I think that we'll see them. The words will be revealed and the book will be unsealed, so that at the very last, at the breaking of the last seal and the sounding of the last trumpet and the pouring out of the last vial, as all of these things are finishing up, then we will see the fulfillment of all these things, and we will understand and all of that. Daniel said, I looked and behold, let's see, I don't think I wanted. Oh, how long? He said, will it be until the end of these wonders? And he just tells him it will be for a time, times, and half a time. This is another time that he uses that, meaning a year, 2 years, and a half years. As soon as they finish shattering the power of the holy people, all these events will be completed. He said, I heard but did not understand. So I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? And he said, go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up until the end time. Many will be purged and purified and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but those who have insight will understand. From the time the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, this is the third time that Daniel speaks of what Jesus said. When you see this happen, let the reader understand. He said, from that time, there will be how many? 1,290 days. 1,260 of those are when the Antichrist has authority on the earth. The other 30 days from that 1,260 to there's another month there, and I'm not sure what takes place during that time, but he just says it this way. There will be 1,290 days. And it says, how blessed is he that keeps waiting and attains to the 1,335 days. I think I know what that means. And I think that means that's when Christ sets up his kingdom on earth, is at the 1335 days. Another, however many days, that would be 45 days after, a month and a half after. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. And so, anyway, but as for you, go your way to the end. Then you will enter your rest. Rise again at your allotted portion at the end of the age. That's the way the Protestant version of the book of Daniel ends. Others have 2 more chapters, but that's where Daniel's portion of it, what Daniel has given himself, that's where it ends. I know that it's time and I need to quit, and so I'm going to try to quit sharing at this time. Let's see. Okay, you can turn on your cameras, your mics if you would, and any questions? It's just as clear as mud, right? We understand every bit of that. We now have insight into all those things, and we understand it all. Is that right? Okay, it might be. All right, very good. So, but let's pray together, and we'll get some sleep, and it'll be a new day. Let us pray. Father, we are grateful for the many blessings you brought upon us. We're thankful, dear Lord, that you've been with us again today. Just ask, dear Lord, that you will guide our hearts, guide our minds, and that you will help us to be ready for that time. Lead us, guide us, keep us, and again, be with Pastor Charlotte and Brother Greg and everyone else, dear Lord, that needs your help and touch today. We thank you and praise you now for all that you do and are. We give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. And I will say good night to you.